So, again, welcome. My name's John. This is the 143JKRD channel. And let me tell you, it was a busy weekend. It's almost over now. It's about noon on Tuesday. I have weird weekends, so sorry. Anywho, Sunday morning, Dana and I got together. We live together, so that isn't that big of news. We jammed over to Bend in her vehicle. This car, unfortunately, is not really as comfortable as a 2022 4Runner, so I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, on our way over, we were looking for things to do. We had time to kill. We were not on a timeline, unlike normally when we travel somewhere, you kind of have an itinerary. This was open. And so there are many times that I feel like we kind of pass by hidden gems, either where we live or places we go on a frequent basis, and I fear that is absolutely the case in our case. So in our trips to Prineville, the Ochocos, Bend, other places you've seen me go in Central Oregon, again, going back to, one of our favorite destinations. We pass by, or you pass through Madras, which is a small town by the Warm Springs Indian Reservation. And they have an aviation museum there. I believe it's called the Erickson something Aviation Museum. And it's a private museum. You have to pay to get in. Although I think I paid $8 for admission. Not a huge deal. And in retrospect, it was awesome on a lot of circumstances. So I fancy myself a little bit of a World War II aviation history nerd, if you want to use that term. And this place did not disappoint. They had a couple of my favorite airplanes there, or airplanes that I've never seen in real life. I don't know about favorite airplanes. They had, and it was more than just World War II aircraft, but a significant amount of the aircraft there were in fact World War II aircraft. They had an aircraft there called a P-39 Airacobra. And I've heard of these. I've read about this aircraft. It is a low-wing monoplane mid-engine fighter that was, I think it was designed slightly before World War II broke out. It is about the same generation as a P-40 Warhawk. So it's kind of that pre-war, late 30s, early 40s, where aircraft designers thought one thing, and then throughout the war, they built different aircraft that were much more advanced. And so these guys have a flyable P-39 Airacobra, which, again, it was never really widely accepted into the U.S. military. I believe it was used a small amount. But compared to a P-38, which there was one, P-40s, obviously, in the Pacific Theater, you had Corsairs and a variety of Wildcats, Bearcats, Hellcats, stuff like that. European theater, you had P-38 Lightnings again, P-47s, P-51s. We're all very familiar with those. And they're wonderful aircraft. Where the P-39 is not, again, it's a nerd thing, I guess you would say. The other thing they had was late in the war, in fact, I think it's even just slightly after World War II, but into Korea, it really became famous in Vietnam, they had a Skyraider, which there's not a lot of those guys hanging around either. So, and I don't know why, but they weren't, they were a propeller-driven aircraft in kind of a jet age, and so they aren't terribly represented in most museums. I've never seen one actually in person. But again, if you follow the Vietnam War at all, they were used as a ground attack aircraft, most famously, I think, supporting Special Forces, MACV-SOG, SEAL teams, people like that, used the heck out of these because they were a very large, single-engine, propeller-driven aircraft that just could carry a ton of munitions and cannons and stuff, rockets, that sort of thing. So they're a very cool aircraft as well. But anyway, from us being in our 50s, we of course had to follow the Air Museum up with a winery. So we hung out there for a little bit. Dana had a flight of wines, which was fun. And so we flash forward, jammed down to Bend, waving at a mountain biker. Anyway, we jammed down to Bend. Our Hilton Hotel room was not ready. We were a little bit early for that. So I thought, what the heck? We will surprise my friend who's competing in, I think it was called the Tactical Games. Trip, I guess Monday, then came home yesterday. Gosh, the days slip away. It's Tuesday currently. So August 1st, Dana and I drive back here to Mount Hood, and then we did some various errands around town. Then that left me today, which is what I'm shooting right now, and I'll roll in a couple shots. So I've been having troubles with this car after it's been driven a significant amount of time, not shifting properly. I consulted my friends at the internet, and via forums, YouTube videos, I changed the speed sensor. Some people call it the ABS sensor, some people call it a VSS sensor, but basically it's a vehicle speed sensor which is mounted on the rear differential. There's a reluctor ring on the ring gear of this particular rear end. I did change that. It cropped up a little bit, but not as significantly. And I got to brainstorming on this, and I noticed that the connector I had taken off in order to change the sensor was a little banged up. And so I purchased one of those, and that's what I did this morning, in addition to an oil change. So what I've done to this point, you're catching me, welcome to my test drive. Mid-test drive, I just thought I'd hang out in the forest here for a second, mid-test drive, and do this quick little dialogue, but I'll throw in some footage here and there. I changed the connector, I cut it. When I'm dealing with a sensor type connector or radio equipment type connectors, I think it's advised to solder them versus do a mechanical crimp-on connector to connect wires, because that adds resistance, where a solder joint generally has less resistance. So that's what I did, is I soldered the wires together, and it appears to be working just fine. I have purchased another vehicle speed sensor in case this one's bad. But this is what we've done up to the end of the weekend. We had a great time. We spent 2 days playing, and today's my day to basically try to edit in a bunch of clips, and I took a bunch of pictures and maybe some video of the trip. But suffice it to say, we had a great time. I appreciate you for joining in my silly, like I said, middle-aged dude videos. And so I hope that you find this enjoyable. If you did, please come back. There may actually be some video of substance in the future. Who knows? That could happen. And I hope you enjoyed just me being goofy on video. So have a good afternoon. If you want to follow this channel or subscribe to the channel, feel free. I'm up to like 40 subscribers, so stay tuned. Anyway, I hope you have a good afternoon.